Now we are going to look at another area in supply, which is elasticity of supply. As you may have seen under demand, there was also an area of elasticity of supply, definitions and calculations. Even in supply, we are going to handle the subtopic in the same way. We shall need the definition, and we shall have to look at the various categories of elasticity of supply, carry out a few calculations here and there, and lastly, try to enumerate and explain the various factors which determine the elasticity of supply of a product. By definition, elasticity of supply is simply the measure of degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied of a commodity due to changes in any of the factors which affect supply. We have already enumerated those factors: gestation period, price of the commodity, price of a jointly supplied commodity, cost of production, level of technology, working conditions of the workers. All those are under consideration when we look at elasticity of supply. If you change any one of them, how are the producers going to respond as far as the quantity put on the market is concerned? Will they supply more? Will they supply less? Assuming that there is an increase in the cost of production of coffee, will they reduce the production of coffee by a bigger percentage, or will it be by a smaller percentage? So we are looking at elasticity in that kind of trend. You introduce a change in one of the variables which affect supply, and then try to observe how much quantity will be supplied as a result or corresponding to that change in the variable which affects supply. Let's begin with the price elasticity of supply. Okay, by definition, elasticity of supply is the measure. The word measure is very important, and since it is a measure, we shall be coming out with the values. Okay? Our value, which will be the yardstick used to measure that change. So elasticity of supply is the measure of degree. Measure of degree. Degree is the same as extent to which degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied of a commodity, quantity supply of a commodity to changes you are responding to changes in the factors determining supply. Due to changes or responding to changes in the factors determining supply, and we can just remember a few, like price of the commodity, e.g. price of the commodity, cost of production, then level of technology. We also have number of producers, etc. There were many, but for accounting purposes, we have just listed 3. So when we talk of elasticity of supply, we are simply referring to a measure of the degree of responsiveness. To what extent are producers responding to a change in one of the variables which affect supply? You introduce a better technology. How are they going to respond by using that modern technology? Will they supply more? So we are going to measure the quantity from what they had at the beginning and look at what they have now after introducing a new technology and see whether the response was big or the response was small. Hence, our measurement. You have producers joining a line of production as a result of maybe an increase in the price of the commodity, and you find that as the number of producers increase as a response to an increased price, are they going to increase the supply of that commodity in larger quantities? Or even though the price has increased, but you find that the amount which has been put onto the market is not corresponding to the proportionate change in the price. So when we look at elasticity of supply, all these variables may be considered one at a time, and then you try to see how our suppliers react. That reaction is what we call the elasticity. They can react by supplying more, they can react by supplying less, they can react but not supplying at all. There may be no changes or no additions. All those are reactions to a change in one of the variables. And the very first variable is that one of price. And for that matter, we call that one the price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply. How do we define this one? It is still like the other definition, except that now we are strictly looking at one variable, not all the others, but only price. So this is the measure. This is the measure of the degree of responsiveness, measure of the degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied of a commodity, quantity supplied of a commodity to changes in the price of that same commodity. Changes in the price of that same commodity due to changes in the price of that same commodity. So that's how we define price elasticity of supply. It is the measure of the degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied of a commodity due to changes in the price of that same commodity. You have a commodity like beans. The price increases maybe from 2,000 shillings per kilo, and now beans are selling at 5,000 shillings per kilo. Then you find the responsiveness. How are consumers going to respond to that increase in price of beans? Will they increase the quantity supplied, or will they not respond at all? And the price elasticity of supply is given by the following formula. Given by the following formula. Since it is a measure, we need to calculate, and in our calculation, we have a formula. Where we say P stands for price, E stands for elasticity, S stands for supply. So wherever you see PES, it stands for price, elasticity of supply, and these abbreviations in economics, where they are for words or formula, they are accepted. So price elasticity of supply, or we can first begin writing it in full, and then we can use the abbreviation later. Price elasticity of supply is given by proportionate change in quantity supplied divided by proportionate change in price. So if quantity supplied is commodity X, again here it has to be the same commodity X. It is commodity X whose price is changing proportionately, and then you try to find out the amount that is supplied, and here we multiply it by the change, so by the original price over original quantity. So the value you get will be giving you the degree to which the response has been. And we find that this degree can either be positive or negative, greater than 1, less than 1, and we shall interpret the values accordingly as they may be calculated. So we can say, in abbreviation, price elasticity of supply is given by percentage change in quantity supplied of commodity X over percentage change in price of X multiplied by price of X over quantity of X. So we are looking at the same commodity. Why? Because that's the definition of price, elasticity of supply. We deal in the same commodity. So if it is price of X, then it is also still quantity of X and not another commodity. And we have to say that the coefficient or the calculated value, coefficient of price, elasticity of supply is positive. Unlike in demand, where it was negative, and you have to multiply it by a negative to make it positive, here we don't have any negative sign on our formula, simply because we saw that under supply, price and quantity supplied move in the same direction. So they move in the same direction. So if you are dividing a positive with a positive, it will be positive. Negative with negative, again it will come to be positive. So that's why our formula is a positive one, with a coefficient we calculate will be positive, not negative, and that is because of the direct relationship between price and quantity and supply. So that is how our equation looks like. We can have it in percentage change, or we can have it in proportionate changes. And so those have been the wordings used in our formula, but we can say that price elasticity of supply is given by where delta means change in quantity supplied over change in price, which is price of X, and quantity supplied of X multiplied by original price of X over original quantity of X. That is price elasticity of supply. Proportionate percentage change in quantity supplied of X over proportionate change in price of that same commodity X multiplied by the original price of X over the original quantity of X. So that is our formula, and we should not forget it because it is what we are going to be using now and again in our calculations. So you can put it in bold or in a color that distinguishes it from the other notes. So prices of supply, change in quantity demand source supplied of X over change in price of X and multiplied by price of X over quantity of X. So that is an important formula for us, which we shall be using in our calculations. So from there we go to categories. Categories of elasticity of supply. Elasticity of supply. Like you may have seen under demand, even in supply, the categories are different. You find that there are certain commodities whose supply may not increase even if there is an increase in the price. Because we are looking at the amount that will be put on the market as a result of changing one of the variables which affect supply, taking price as an example. You may increase the price of a given commodity and you are expecting producers to go ahead and increase the supply of that commodity. But that may not happen. They are not responding. So we have that category of where supply is inelastic. There is nothing, there is no stretching, there is no increasing, there is no changing in the quantity that is put on the market, however much the price may be increased. So we shall look at that one as supply being inelastic. And it is common with the fixed kind of supply. Then there is that one which is very elastic. Just a small increase in the price of the commodity makes suppliers to go ahead and mobilize resources or inputs and increase the supply of that good. So where just a small increase or a small change in the price of the commodity leads to a bigger change in quantity supply, we can always say or assume or take it for that matter that the quantity is having, or that product is having elastic supply. So let's begin with a fairly elastic supply. Elastic supply is where a very small percentage in price leads to a big percentage in the quantity supplied, and usually the calculated value is greater than 1. We saw that we don't have any kind of negative values. Our values are either greater than 1 or less than 1, but not negative. So supply is elastic if a very small change in the price of that commodity leads to a big change in quantity supply of that commodity. And it can be illustrated by a diagram or a graph. So categories of elasticity of supply, where we have the elastic supply as A. And this is where a small change, we introduce a small change in the price of the good, price of the commodity, leads to a big, so small change leading to a big increase, in quantity supplied of that commodity. Elastic supply, this is where a small change in the price of the commodity leads to a big increase in quantity supplied of that commodity. Illustration. How can we illustrate that elastic supply? have our quantity, supply per given time, and we have our price on this axis, and we are trying to find out how elastic is our supply for this product. Assuming that originally the price was here, we have an original price, PO, and what was the amount that was being supplied at that price? You see that the quantity supplied was here. QE is the quantity which was supplied. Then you increase the price of this same commodity to a higher level. Now it goes to P1. Then you want to see what is the proportionate increase in the quantity supply as a result of the increase in the price of that commodity. You can see that this is where the price line touches our supply curve, and we are able to read off the quantity supply from the x-axis, which is Q1. So at price P1, a bigger quantity is being supplied, obeying the law of supply. And we find that from P0 to P1 is our change in price, and then from QE to, it would also have been PE. And they should be the same. If all of them are 0, then they are 0. If they are E, then they should be E. And now we find that from Q0 to Q1, so we find that this is now our change in quantity supply, all the way from here to here. And if you measure, this change is smaller than this one. You introduce a small increase in the price, and suppliers respond by increasing the quantity supplied of that commodity. So here we say that supply is elastic, and the calculated coefficient of value is greater than 1. It is greater than 1. If you calculate, you are going to get a value which is greater than 1. Why? Because we have seen that in our calculation we have change in quantity over change in price multiplied by original price over original quantity. So our change in quantity is big. So you have a bigger value, let's say 100. That is the change in quantity. Yes, the change in price was 2. And you find that definitely 100 divided by 2, you get 50. And 50 is greater than what? Greater than 1. So it is because the change in quantity with which you are dividing with the change in price is greater than the change in price. So that's why we tend to get a value which is greater than 1 if we have to substitute into the formula. So from the diagram, a small percentage change in price is followed by a big or very big percentage change in quantity supply of the commodity. Small, what do we note? That a small percentage change, in price of the commodity, small percentage change in the price of the commodity is followed by a big change, a big percentage change in quantity supply of the same commodity. So we are dealing in the same commodity, we are not comparing with any other. We are introducing a change in the commodity and then try to see the response for that same commodity, because we are in price elasticity of supply. A small change, you have increased the price by a small value from P0 to P1, but we can see that it is corresponding with a bigger change in quantity supplied. So there we conclude that the supply of that commodity is elastic. As you can see, it is increasing from a smaller quantity to a bigger quantity as a result of just a small change in the price of the commodity. So that is one category where supply is elastic, but we can also have a situation where supply is perfectly elastic. How do we define it and how do we illustrate it? How do we define it and how do we illustrate it? Perfectly elastic supply is our category number 2. Perfectly elastic supply. Perfectly elastic supply. Like you saw in perfectly elastic demand, we also have perfectly elastic supply. And this is where, at a prevailing price or above that, producers are willing to supply more than what they can put on the market, and anything above that price cannot be put on the market at all. It can easily be understood using a diagram. We have our quantity supplied at a time, quantity supplied at a given time. So this is our supply curve, which is from there, and we have our price, which is there, and we find that here this is the last price, and at that price anybody is free to supply as much as you want, even if the price is not changing at all. So it is like having a fixed price, and at that price you can have various quantities supplied. You can have Q1, you can have Q2, you can have Q3, but all of them are being supplied at the constant price of PE. So the price is the same. You have a small quantity, it can be a big quantity, it can be a much more bigger quantity, which is Q3, and we say that the supply of that commodity is perfectly elastic, where there is no regulation, there is no restriction in the amount that will be demanded, even if the price does not increase. Price is not increasing, price is not going down, it is a fixed price, but any quantity can be supplied at that fixed price. It can increase. So people are willing to supply all they can at price of pay, and nothing above that price can reach the market, and we find that even if it is low, they may not be able to supply. So it shows a fixed price, and we find that this is rare. In our day-to-day life experiences, it is not easy to come up with a supply which is perfectly elastic because of the limited resources, and you find people wasting resources. Price is not increasing, but for them they continue supplying that commodity unless if it is under government or socialist economy, and the government is not after making profits. Because for the free enterprise economy, where profit motive is the major drive, a stagnant price may not attract resources towards the production of that commodity, whose price is not changing at all, and for them they go ahead and change the quantity supplied. So in reality, this is rare, and it can only happen where we have a purely socialist economy and government is not after profit, and it will continue supplying bigger quantities to its people because maybe it is a public good, it is for welfare purposes, but not for profit. Then we have supply being elastic. So here, definition is missing. This is where producers are willing to supply as much as they want, as much as they want, at a constant price, and will not operate above or below that fixed price. They will not operate above or below that fixed price. So there is no way they can operate at a price which is higher than PE. There is no way they can operate at a price which is below OPE. So that is the price which is already set, and we find that they have their freedom either to supply a small quantity or a bigger quantity, and they are not influenced by the price whatsoever. So price has no effect whatsoever on their supply. So that is the perfectly elastic supply, and the coefficient is always greater than 1 but less than, the coefficient is infinity, because you are dividing big change in quantity supply to no change or zero change, and any figure divided by 0 is going to give you a value of infinity. Then we have fairly inelastic supply. When do we find that supply is now inelastic? This is where a big change in the price of the commodity, leads to a small change. You find that we have a big change, but it is followed by a small change in the amount supply of that commodity. Amount supplied of that commodity. And can be observed more clearly using an illustration. So we can illustrate our elasticities, and we can be able to understand it better with an illustration. How do we illustrate inelastic supply? So that is our supply curve now. And we are able to find the shape of the supply curve in regard to elasticity by the slope. this one is very steep, and if it is very steep, then it is an indicator that it's not going to give us a big stretch. You have a price on this side, price of the good, and again here we have the quantity supplied per given time. You begin with a price which is as low as maybe the price is a low price. We introduce a change and increase it. Begin with a low price, P0, and how much is supplied at P0. You extend your price line until it touches the supply curve, and where they meet, you are able to read off the quantity from the x-axis. So at a low price of P0, obeying the low supply, quantity supplied is also very low. Then you think that maybe let me interest my suppliers by increasing the price of their commodity, and maybe they are all going to respond by also increasing the quantity supply. So you introduce a bigger increase in the price of the commodity. You move all the way from P0, and now you come to P1. So you can see that the increase is actually big. You are moving from a low level to a high level, and you can see that the gap between the first price and the new price is actually big. So let's look at our expectation. Is it going to be fulfilled at a higher price? Actually, a bigger quantity is going to be supplied by the producers. So you try to relate this new high price that has been given, so that you see where it intersects with the supply curve, and then you are able to read off the quantity from the x-axis, and you find that the change or the increase in price is very high, but you are only having a small increase in quantity supply. You are moving only from there to there, yet here the increase in price was a big one. So you have a big change in price, and you have a small change in quantity demanded, and you find that in our formula it was change in quantity divided by the change in price. So now you have a small change in quantity followed by a big change in price. Therefore our calculated answer is going to be less than 1. Less than 1. You are dividing a small figure with a big figure, so the fraction is going to be less than 1. So whenever we calculate and we get a value which is less than 1, we can interpret our value or our coefficient and say that the supply of that product is inelastic. Why? Because the calculated value is less than 1. Why? We have a bigger change in price, but it is followed by a very small increase in quantity supply. It means that the supply of that commodity cannot be increased drastically to correspond with the increase in the price. Maybe it is because of the long gestation period. You may increase the price of coffee today, but you cannot have coffee increased tomorrow. You have to wait. So because of that time lag factor, you find that the supply of coffee in the short run tends to be inelastic, because you have to wait for a longer period of time until that crop is able to mature, and then you are able to harvest and increase the supply thereof of that same commodity. So you can illustrate inelastic supply by having a steep or a steeply sloped supply curve, whereby you introduce a big change in price, but it's followed by a small increase in the quantity that is supplied. So that is inelastic supply. We also have another category of perfectly inelastic supply. Like we saw perfectly elastic, we also have perfectly inelastic supply. Perfectly inelastic supply. this is where a big increase in the price of commodity is followed by no change in quantity supply and illustration. In such a situation, you find that the prices are increasing for that respective product or commodity, but the suppliers are not increasing on the quantity put on the market whatsoever. You have a lower price, P0. Let's assume that this is 2,000 shillings and the quantity supplied is 10 units. The price increases to 5,000 shillings. You find that the quantity still remains 10 units. The price increases maybe to 9,000 shillings, whereby, according to the low supply, at a higher price, you're supposed to increase the supply, but you find that the quantity remains 10 units. So here we say our supply is perfectly inelastic. It is not extending, it is not responding, it is not increasing, not reducing. At a lower price, same quantity is supplied. And at a very high price, again the same quantity is supplied. And we find that in this case, we have, if we are to calculate, we are calculating a zero change. There is no change at all in our quantity supply. And we are dividing zero change with a big change in the price. And we know that any figure of zero, or 0 divided by any number, the result you get is 0. So where the calculated coefficient is 0, then we know that our elasticity of supply is perfectly inelastic. The suppliers are not responding at all by increasing the quantity supply, however much the prices may increase, simply because they have already installed a capacity to supply in a given period of time, and whether prices increase or not, that installed capacity can never be shifted to a higher level. It is already a fixated kind of capacity. So such situations may arise where the supply of a commodity is perfectly inelastic and there is an increase or big increase in the price of the commodity, but is followed by no change in quantity supplied. So the change in quantity would be 0 despite the changes in the price of that commodity, and you find that in the long run your coefficient is going to be a 0 change. So this is where price changes have no effect whatsoever on the quantity supplied of a commodity. It means that the quantity supplied remains constant despite the price changes, and the calculated coefficient is equal to 0. Let's look at the last category of supply, like we may have seen in demand, which is unitary elasticity. So there are basically 5 categories of supply: elastic, perfectly elastic, inelastic, perfectly inelastic, and unitary. Unitary elastic supply. And this is where the same proportionate change in the price of the commodity, is followed by the same equal change in quantity supplied. You find that the change in quantity supplied is the same as the change in price of that commodity X. If the change is 10, you find that even the change in price is 10, and you get a value of 1. That's why it's called unitary. Unit coming from the word 1. So the calculated value is always 1 because the proportionate changes are the same. They are equal. The calculated coefficient is always equal to 1 since change in quantity is equal to change in price. Since the change in quantity is equal to the change in price. And illustration. Begin with the price. Increase the price. Have an original price of P0 and our quantity supplied was Q0. You increase the price to a higher level, P1. Our quantity supplied also increased to 1. And you find that the change in price is exactly the same as the change in quantity. So the distance here is the same as the distance there. It's like that change in quantity divided by change in price equals same value divided by same value. And you get an answer of 1. Same value divided by same value, you get an answer of 1. So that's when our elasticity is unitary. Introduce change in price followed by exactly the same increase in quantity. And if this is 2, this is also 2. 2 divided by 2, you get 1. If this is 10, this is also 10. 10 divided by 10, you get 1. But in real world situations or in practical situations, it is very difficult to have the conditions being exactly the same, because the factors which influence the price and quantity supply are not usually the same. Suppliers supply for different reasons, and the prices attached also are determined in different ways.